So today we are with Karen Jenkins with KidAlytics. And so she's going to kind of explain and talk about her program, her baby. And we're here with I'm Okema Gunn with the Chicago Defender, and we're gonna start the interview. So Karen, tell us a little bit about what KidAlytics is about and its motto.
Yes, so KidAlytics is an analytic education program for teens that's in grades 8th through 12th grade. And what we do is we curate education around analytics because it's the language that they speak every day. But within that language, it can be very troublesome for a kid to kind of go through some of these things and not even understanding that they're actually creating some of these data prints. So within that, I teach them that data points are human people, because that is number one. We look at that a lot and we have these conversations, but do we understand that we are talking about people? So that's why it's ingrained in critical thinking, strategic planning, and social emotional learning. Because my biggest thing is when I talk to kids, I ask them first before anything, how are you doing today? I think that is the most valuable data point today in our current state of COVID.
Very true, very true. So why do you think statistics and analytics is important in society as a whole?
Well, it's so important, as you just said. It's in almost everything we're doing, even right now as we're speaking over data. It's so important, even as we think about just what's going on now, the census. The census is one of the most important data tools that we have. So that's why it's so important, because data tells us about our communities. It tells us where money is flowing, what municipalities, fixing roads, and all those things. So, and those things are based upon first the census, then other data that we collect doing other things. So that's why data is so important, from the TV programmings that we see on TV, from our media news sources. It's just in everything that we do. And these kids that I'm teaching right now, they were born in a generation of AI. They don't know anything else. So we have to tool them and equip them to move in the future in the world that they were actually born in, that they will continue to create. So it's those things I want them to really understand, that, their future is limitless. It's so many possibilities, because they're at a time in this fourth industrial revolution to build this great world. As we look at all these sci-fi movies, from Minority Report, even in cartoons when we grew up, the Jetsons, they will create that. So, but we have to actually give them the tools and actually go through the process of letting them understand what's going on, what's being collected, because they are so heavy driven with data. You don't see a kid without a phone in their hand, and that is data.
That is true. So let me ask you this before we get into the programs. What are some of the maybe obstacles that, or maybe questions that some of the kids have asked you about why data is important? It's like, kids, they ask a lot of questions. They're very inquisitive. What are some questions that they may say, hey, Miss Karen, what about, why is this phone data so important? Or like, what are some questions that some kids may ask you?
Well, yes, that is so true. They do ask, why is this important sometimes? But that's why I kind of introduce it very slowly. And I do start off with the phone, like protect your data. They understand the data in the sense of they use it, they consume it, but they don't really understand the key points of data data is collecting on them. So I try to start off with things like hacking and tell them about hacking and what that is, because certain words we know, but we just really kind of have to shift through exactly what those things mean. Because just as we talked about analytics and you mentioned statistics, we could say computer science, we could say AI, we could say machine learning, but all of that is built upon data, no matter which field you go into. So when they ask these questions, I break it down. So now they kind of start to realize, like, wow, I could go into this field, I could go into that field, and that's really what I want them to see. And also too, just because how the classes are set up. So we have kids from all over the country. So it's national. So that opens up that conversation. And that's why within KidAlytics, the social impact initiative is so important for people to donate, because this education is not exclusive, it's inclusive. And only way we can build this Jetson world, this minority report, and give them those tools is by being able to have those conversations early on with people from all different economic backgrounds, because that is data as well, because that's demographics. But if I don't know what's going on in your community, you may have a solution to help me in my community. You know, and kids are very inquisitive, and they can actually come up with so many things because they're not tainted by some of the things in the world that say, no, I can't do that. So that's why I think all of that is so important, because you have kids that's interested in auto mechanics, you have kids interested in computer science, some entrepreneurship, whatever it is, because it does not really matter if you understand data at the basis and get that foundation. You can go any which way you want, whether you're a social worker, a director, a community activist. Everyone uses data.
Well, let's say I'm not a kid, right? Let's say, you know, I'm an adult. I want to enroll in one of your programs and find out about statistics, because I'm at the basic level. I don't know too much about analytics and statistics, and I might want to get into a program and, you know, be a kid again and you know, start at the bottom. You know, what if?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk a little bit about that.
You must have been talking to one of my parents, because that's what they tell me when I do the assessment with their kids. So yes, so we're moving forward, and we're having another program. It's coming soon, where we're going to be doing from 16 to 24-year-olds with analytics. So this is on a national level with another national program. The launch and everything will be coming out soon. So what we're doing is taking them from the bottom level too, because some of the things you think you know, as far as like coding, and because you use that with analytics as well, you may know how to code something, but you don't understand. So parents have been asking me about that. Like, I don't know how to read a spreadsheet. I can't really do Excel. So we have been developing programs, coaching programs right now with organizations. And I'm having parent webinars coming up within the next couple of weeks. So even from that, then we can merge off and develop those coaching training classes, because that is something I'm noticing when I'm starting to talk to parents. At first, they don't understand. And then when I break it down so simple, they like, wait, hey, I've been doing this. I've been talking about this. I say, yes, and your kids have too. So they're like, hey, I want to join. So that's kind of how some of this came about too. And then other organizations coming and approaching me like, hey, you do analytics. We have students that's older that want to get into more entrepreneurship, because that is where analytics came from, business practices. So people starting to realize it's important in every sector, and it's only growing in the job market. Well, so this venture that I just took on, KidAlytics, this is a new business. So we've only been on for 5 months.
Oh,
but
wow.
I have done other programs, because I have a very eclectic background. So I started in education, medicine, social science, research, and different things in technology and business. So just a combination of that, and doing data conferences in Chicago. I have some of those tech contacts because I was actually in that space. So I have reached out to some of them. So that is to be coming forward and announced, different things and partnerships with other just pipeline programs. Because one thing we always focus on, and I believe in, like, my motto is reimagine education with equity, because we need equity. Education is not free, although we will want it to be, it's just not. So that is my thing, reimagine education with equity, because kids really need this education. And also with that, reimagining what education is, we have to give them access to pipelines, because sometimes you'll have these programs. We tell, especially our Black and brown kids a lot, build equity, build wealth, but you can't build wealth without legacy. And you can't just have $1 million business without that equity to put into it. So my thing is, and you can't say, oh, be an entrepreneur, don't go to college. Our kids don't understand that college isn't for everybody. What are those other options?
Right.
So our partners have these pipeline programs so that these kids have the opportunity to see that, you know, one of my partnerships, you can get a certification in data analytics or UX design. You don't need a college degree, but if you come to KidAlytics, you have the basics. You build on that from other programs and then go to that program. You can have a certification that will give you a job for about $67,000 minimum a year before you even have a college degree, or you can have a vocational. So I'm a firm believer of other pipeline programs, but we like to put it in boxes of college degree, this and that, but education is education. And so that's one thing that my program is really focused on, education as a whole, not just in a silo.
How did you become I think it's a statistician? Is that what you call it?
So I am more so, I would say, an analyst, because I've done contracting from you know, the government, Center for Medicaid Services, universities, medical schools, different places like that, even non-for-profits. So I would say, you know, I'm a combination of an analyst, a data scientist. It's all within that spectrum, but it just depends on the role. And that's the thing, you know, we use these terms, but sometimes it is different levels to it, but it just depends on the role that you're in. So I kind of came upon this in undergrad. I was studying psychology and I was pre-med, but I didn't like math, and I went and started doing statistics because I needed to do it. But I was always nosy. So statistics just was like, wow, I could apply math numbers to something, but just give me regular math? No. I was like, do not compute. But when I'm looking at my community, when I was wondering why, because this is like, you know, mid era, look what's going on in community, how can I help, what does this number mean? So kind of those things, and being able to be in a university setting, that is what got me really into statistics. And as I just merged on from grad school, medical school, and then grad school again, just kind of really still keeping that and just starting to realize how all of that had started to kind of merge into every field. So it was me trying to find answers to questions that led me more so to this. Regardless of what I studied, tech is like I could never get away from doing algorithms, or I just kind of build up more and more conversations, reading journal articles. So I wouldn't even say it was just a combination of my education formally, but also just my curiosity and inquisitiveness in trying to figure out, how can I help people?
It's interesting that you said about helping people. Most people, you know, that's how they grow their business, and that's how these businesses come about, because there's a need and people want to be able to form a kind of an extension of their business, and they want to help other people. So a lot of businesses grow out of necessity for what's going on in the community. And I applaud you for creating KidAlytics, because it's very much needed in this community and globally.
It's needed more so in the Black and brown communities. Mm-hmm. Just in my I want to say segue into saying, okay, I'm going full-fledged into analytics, and I'm gonna bring everything I have ever studied with it. Because I would go into these job interviews, it wasn't someone that looked like me, whether they were male or female interviewing me. They wasn't represented even in the companies. And then another thing I noticed, they didn't really know what they wanted about 5 years ago, or even 4 years ago. Some companies don't know now, because it's just the thing to have someone that's an analyst or in tech, because that's really what they thought it was, just tech before. And I would say this, even me noticing that. And I was like, why aren't we here? It's not a lack of, we don't have the capability, we don't have the chance, and we don't have the access. Because when we think about some of these things as far as business practices, why aren't we having businesses that have been going on for 50 years, 60 years, that is taking care of us for generations, because that is generational wealth. It's not just one generation. So, you know, I started to think, why is that? And I was like, because analytics was really ingrained in business. And if we wasn't able to even get that information to have these businesses, yeah, we would have a gap in there. But now it's the hot topic. Even though we have all these STEM programs, that's fine. But everybody is not going to be a coder. Everybody is not going to go into machine learning. So you're learning certain things, but those are not life skills that you're going to take on to build on, to actually sustain your family moving forward. But I believe when you go to the basics, you can always build on that when it's in order. But once you're giving them certain things that, you know, you need that next up, or your parent need that money to send you to that program, or you need certain information to even apply to those other programs. So, and when you look at the numbers in STEM for as Black people, because analysts is kind of thrown into that as well, we have a lot of, and you know, all of this has brought out even those diversity and inclusion initiatives, even with the STEM initiatives. It has been a whole reach and to get into, you know, Black and brown and women. But when you look at the numbers, far as still who's getting hired, who's going to school for it, it's white males. Our numbers are still decreasing. And it's because of the lack of that information that is the basis to build, to move to each level.
Okay, great. So I know that for the past, I would say 10 years, they've been talking about STEM, and you talk about careers of the future. And I know that was one thing that I want to discuss with you. Tell us about how KidAlytics is going to lead our children into the future, or jobs of the future, what that might look like.
So what that looks like is I have a good group of people, because I do stuff that's very innovative as well, and things that I can't even discuss right now that hasn't came to market. Okay. So just giving them access to those possibilities, because some things I tell people, like people call me like, Karen, you was telling me this 5 years ago. Now that's crazy. And I thought you was crazy. And I was like, I told you, just wait for it. So exposing them to those things and actually being able to see it in real time, not something that is already existed, but actually you're taking it to all out the box. Like, I would have never thought of this. I've never seen nothing like this. So I think exposing them to that really shows them the possibilities of what is being created, what that process looks like. Because a lot of things, like a cell phone, we've been had cell phones. We, the public, didn't get it probably 10 years, you know, after everybody else who had access and knew this knowledge, and, you know, the few people, they were using it. So that's what KidAlytics does, expose them to those careers. Because, you know, we always say, if you can't see it, sometimes you can't believe it. But if you know, like, wait, that person, wait, oh my God, they do this. Because I know I still geek out like that. So I feel like I'm kind of like a kid. So, like, what are those things that make me like other people? I like them for their work. And then from there, it just breeds those conversations. And also, too, giving them exposure to whether it's college professors, researchers, you know, inventors, venture capitalists. So just starting that process early on, that opens those conversations to possibilities. And it opens also too from your peers, because everyone in the class is peers. So you never know, you might have 3 people from 3 different backgrounds, 3 different states get together and create something. You just never know, because they're young. So I think for me, and when like moving forward, I'm kind of like amazed at like what 5 years will look like, just to see what they have created. And being in the school system and understanding a lot of this, and being very active here in the United States and globally, and I have lived overseas, and I have touched so many kids. I have kids that have, graduated from grad school all the way through from, little ones from in my classrooms in elementary school. So I know that process of how beautiful it can be. So, and I know KidAlytics will produce the same, because I'm always available to my students, my network, and it's just amazing. And we're just living in one of these amazing times that I don't even know what they will create. I couldn't even pinpoint or what the name of their job will be, because it's just that big of possibilities for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we don't do any experiments. More so, what I kind of have them do is introduce them to different free soft program first, before we kind of kick it up, like doing infographics.
Okay.
Different things like that. Even when we talk about data, because kids are on the phone so much. And like I said, with that social emotional learning, I have different things of how do you make appropriate memes, appropriate social media posts. So they do things like that. And also too, we look at how much data, like we'll play a game, like how much data do you think is on Facebook in a day, or WhatsApp app? And it's like so amazing. They're like, what, how much? And and we break it down even to a minute. So looking at some of those things and how to do research, because even from that, I've had kids that have started social justice clubs at their school. So once they took the program in the summer, because we talk about the social injustice in data, that actually helped in building more information and going to different things at the Ida B. Wells Data Lab at Princeton. They had a whole thing on the social justice. So exposing them to all these things. I don't care if they're not in college, because depending upon what household you're in, these kids are already reading college books. They're already being introduced to these authors. So that's basically what I'm doing, because those are the books they will be reading when they're in college. So that's kind of some of the things that have come about. Then I had another student took the data because she realized, hey, data is really big in marketing. So she even applied and started doing a pitch because she wanted to start a business. So that's what I'm saying. It's so many different projects. So it's not more so KidAlytics projects, but KidAlytics help you with your projects, and whatever resources I will send you along and I'll help you along. So it's just not you come to my program and it's over. No, you're with us for life. Just keep talking to us. We're going to always reach out to you, because that is what it is. It's not one touch with a child. It's continuous, even through adulthood.
Right. So it's project based, even like you said, down by the minute, or it can be like a half an hour project or a month project. And like you said, you provide
it's whatever
they want to do.
Kid. No, so I don't go through a project. I go through my coursework. And from that's why it says passion meets analytics and education. Whatever your interest is and your passions, no, we help you craft that and develop that to what you decide, because kids learn better when they're involved in their learning. And that's another thing. So that's part of that reimagining education, because we're so used to throwing them stuff, but are those life skills? If I can't think critically and be able to plan far as kind of my learning, because we do it all the time, they're not going to be as involved. But the data, how I present it, is so interesting, you can veer off. So, and those are just some things that veered off as we talked about our lessons. So 3 weeks came, 4 weeks, and hey, they were off like, hey, I think I'm kind of interested in this. Can you help me? And that's really how it becomes. So it's not me telling you what to do. Some kids didn't even do a project, and that's fine,
So the last question is, if you had to be a kid again, let me see. How would you describe KidAlytics as if your childhood self? How would you describe KidAlytics?
I would say I didn't know, I wouldn't have never knew the possibilities that data had until I came to KidAlytics. And I would say that too, because that was one of my comments from my course survey from one of the kids.
That's great.
Yeah. So I would stick to that, because when I seen that, I almost cried.
What would you, last question, what would you tell your youth of today? Uh, one set of advice. What would you tell your children?
I would tell the children that, education is out there for you. You are your first business. So
Mm,
make sure you invest in that with your education, and everything else will come along.
that is a great life lesson.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was great talking with you, and great, it's so, all the information and resources that you give, like, again, is so great for the community, and you're doing a wonderful thing and investing in children's future. And that's, and that's really what, being in education and teaching is about, and being, a responsible mentor. And so we really appreciate that, what you're doing with Kidalytics. So
Thank you.
we're grateful to have you at the Chicago Defender, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.